All right, let's dive into this topic that I think always gets people talking.
Yeah.
The whole thing about younger women and what attracts them to older men.
It really does get a lot of attention, and I
I'm going to
think,
take a deep dive today.
yeah. And, people try to make it simple, but the research we've got really,
It gets complicated.
it really does.
So before we even get going, I want to say that we're just looking at this from a purely analytical perspective.
Okay. Exactly.
We're thus not here to judge anybody. This is just about the psychology and what the research tells us.
That's exactly it. We're going to be focusing on why certain qualities are attractive to people.
Exactly.
We're not trying to say like, oh, this is how you should behave or,
Yeah, we're not endorsing anything here. Okay, so the first big thing that jumps out from all this research is that maturity is important,
Yeah,
but not in the way that you might think right off the bat.
exactly. This kind of maturity is deeper.
Yeah.
It's not just how old you are. It's more about like emotional maturity.
Yeah.
Like how do you handle your life, your relationships? How do you deal with your own emotions?
Yeah. Yeah, and the research gives some really specific examples, right,
Mhm.
about what women are looking for. Things like being emotionally stable, being able to make decisions, and like having a clear sense of where you're going in life.
Yeah, think about it like from way back, right? If you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, those qualities were often linked with men who could provide stability, security, which are things that people look for naturally in someone they want to be with.
That is so interesting. So it's like not just about having your ducks in a row, so to speak, in life, but
No.
being emotionally grounded too.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move to what the research says about communication. This is where it gets good.
I know. What the research does is it contrasts how younger guys communicate compared to older guys in romantic relationships. Like, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's like the research says that younger guys are still kind of figuring out how to put their feelings into words,
Yeah.
especially like being vulnerable and all that. And then older guys,
Especially that.
yeah, they've lived more, right?
Yeah.
So they seem to be more comfortable just like being open and honest in how they talk to their partner.
And that goes right to a point the source makes, which is that women don't want to play guessing games,
Right.
They want you to be straight up and honest, and that just creates like trust and safety in the relationship.
There was this quote that I underlined because it was so good. When a man can just say what he feels and what he wants, it makes a woman feel secure and understood.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
And it makes sense. Everyone wants to feel connected and really close, right? When you feel like your partner is really being real with you, it just makes the connection stronger.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, the next thing is confidence, which I think is interesting because they're really clear about the difference between confidence and arrogance.
Huge difference.
Totally different things.
Like night and day.
Yeah. And the kind of confidence that women find attractive in older men is about being sure of yourself and your experiences.
Right.
It's not about showing off or trying to prove yourself.
Yeah, it's that quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are.
Yeah. Like you know what you bring to the table.
And the research says that because older men have more life experience,
Yeah.
they know themselves better, so they're not looking for approval from other people as much.
That's fascinating. So it's like they're comfortable in their own skin, and that's just naturally attractive,
Oh, yeah. And you can see that confidence in how they carry themselves. Like, there's a calmness and a kind of effortlessness.
Yeah. And speaking of being comfortable in your own skin, there's also this whole idea of emotional intelligence.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something we could all work on, right?
Totally. I mean, emotional intelligence is about being in tune with how you feel and how the people around you feel, and that's so important for a good relationship. And, the research gives specific examples of how this plays out in a relationship. Things like handling arguments in a mature way, being able to reassure your partner, and making them feel emotionally safe.
Yeah, and the source actually tells a story about this woman who was really nervous about giving a presentation at work, and her older partner, instead of brushing it off, he really listened to her fears, and like helped her practice.
That's awesome.
And that kind of empathy just builds so much trust.
Such a good example. And it makes you realize that emotional intelligence isn't just about being nice.
No.
It's about knowing yourself and knowing how to deal with all those tricky feelings in a healthy way.
It's about really being there for your partner and responding in a way that makes them feel safe and supported.
Exactly. And those are qualities that are good for any relationship, no matter the age difference.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of age difference, the research also touches on how people see older men as being more ready to commit.
Yeah, like they're more ready to settle down.
But is that always the case,
That's a good question.
I mean, people are different no matter how old they are.
Right.
So just because someone's older doesn't mean they're automatically ready to settle down.
Right.
It's important to talk openly about what you want
Yeah.
and to have honest conversations about where you see the relationship going. That way, everyone's on the same page.
So important. You've got to be upfront about what you're looking for, and that goes for anyone, really. And speaking of assumptions, this is where the research surprised me. It said a lot of younger women think older men just aren't interested in them.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
It shows how important it is to be approachable.
Yeah, like sending the right signals.
Yeah.
The research talks about things like smiling, having a relaxed posture, just looking open to connecting.
And think about it from a woman's perspective, you know? If you're interested in someone older but think they're not into you, you might not do anything.
You might hesitate.
But then just a smile or something friendly,
Totally changes things.
it can really change things.
It's like saying, hey, I'm open to talking, without actually saying it.
Exactly. It breaks down those walls and makes it easier to connect.
Okay, let's talk about style for a minute. The source had this really interesting point about how older men tend to approach their look.
It talked about that idea of having a refined and timeless style.
Right. So it's not about chasing every trend or dressing like you're trying to be younger.
Exactly. It's about knowing what looks good on you and makes you feel confident.
Yeah, and it's the details too, right? Like well-fitted clothes, good shoes, taking care of your grooming. Those things matter.
They do. They show you care about how you present yourself.
Yeah, like you're saying, I respect myself, and people pick up on that.
They do.
It's interesting how all these qualities we're talking about, maturity, confidence, communication skills, emotional intelligence, they all kind of go hand in hand.
They really do. They all point to someone who is well-rounded and self-assured.
And it's not about being perfect.
No, not at all.
It's about knowing your strengths and always working on becoming a better you.
Exactly, and that takes time and experience.
Yeah, which brings us back to the point that age isn't really the main thing here.
Right.
It's more about personal growth, and that often comes with time.
The source really emphasized that attracting younger women isn't about pretending to be younger.
Yeah.
It's about being comfortable with who you are
Yeah.
and letting your best qualities shine through.
So well said. It's about being your authentic self. And remember, these qualities are attractive in any relationship, not just ones with an age gap.
Absolutely. They're the foundation for any strong connection.
So whether you're looking for love or just want to improve your relationships in general, working on these things can make a real difference in your life.
I agree. They can make you happier and your relationships stronger.
Yeah.
So what do you all think about all this?
Yeah, what stands out to you? What parts surprise you?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We'll be back after a quick break to keep diving into this topic.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's amazing how these topics get people thinking, right?
It really is. Speaking of assumptions, there was something else in the source material that I thought we should talk about.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Well, it mentioned how some younger women might be drawn to the idea of being with someone who can expose them to new experiences.
Ah, that makes sense, right? Like, it goes back to that maturity and experience you talked about earlier.
Exactly. And it's not about wanting a father figure or anything like that.
Yeah, no.
It's more about the thrill of learning new things and growing with someone who has a different perspective on life,
The source actually compared it to like traveling to a new country with a really good guide.
Right. I remember that. It's like having someone show you all the secret spots and help you navigate a place you've never been.
Yeah, and in a relationship, that could be anything from trying new foods to going to different kinds of art shows or even just having deeper conversations about life.
Exactly. It's about expanding your world.
And let's be honest, who doesn't love a little adventure?
So true. Okay, but we also need to talk about the elephant in the room here, right? There are a lot of societal expectations and judgments when it comes to relationships with age gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. The source acknowledges that those relationships can come with unique challenges.
Right.
And that people might face pressure or even disapproval from their families or friends.
It's like society has this idea of what's normal when it comes to relationships.
Exactly. And those norms can definitely influence how people see and react to couples with age differences. But, the source really emphasizes that what matters most is the connection between two people.
That's so important. It's about those two individuals choosing to be together and building something based on respect, understanding, and, love.
And facing those societal expectations together can actually make their bond stronger.
Right, like they learn to support each other and stand up for their relationship.
It can create a sense of unity and resilience.
Exactly. Okay, switching gears a bit. The source also talked about the financial aspect of these relationships.
Yeah, it's definitely something that comes up, and I think it's important to address it.
It's sensitive, but let's unpack it.
The research acknowledges that sometimes a difference in financial stability can play a role in the attraction.
Right. And I think it's important to say that it's not always about a younger woman looking for a sugar daddy or anything like that.
Right.
It might be more about wanting that feeling of security.
That stability that comes with financial resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the source was really clear that this isn't true for everyone.
Yeah, it's not a universal thing.
No. And we shouldn't generalize.
Every couple is different, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the research did say that younger women who value being financially independent themselves might not care as much about their partner's financial status.
That makes sense.
It's about finding someone whose values and goals match up when it comes to money and lifestyle.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, any healthy relationship needs open communication about money, you know, regardless of age.
Being transparent and building trust is so important, especially if there's a potential power dynamic because of a difference in financial stability.
I agree. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to the main theme here. Those qualities that attract younger women to older men.
Yes. Let's tie it all together.
It's not just about age, is it?
Not at all.
It's about all those life experiences and personal growth and developing those attractive qualities we've been talking about.
The maturity, confidence, the emotional intelligence, being a good communicator, having a refined style, those are the things that really draw people in.
And those are things that anyone can work on.
Right, no matter how old you are.
It's about being the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And not just for your relationships, but for yourself too.
You know, the source made a really good point about how attracting younger women isn't about trying to be younger.
Right.
It's about owning who you are
Exactly.
and letting your best qualities shine.
So well said. And remember, these qualities are valuable in any relationship, whether there's an age gap or not.
They're the foundation for healthy, happy connections.
Well said. I think it's safe to say we've debunked some myths today, challenged some assumptions, and learned some really valuable insights about the psychology behind what draws younger women to older men.
We've looked at where attraction comes from, how important emotional maturity is, the power of communication, and so much more.
And most importantly, we've highlighted that healthy relationships, no matter the age difference, are built on respect, trust, and shared values.
I always love digging into these complex topics and sharing what we find with our listeners.
Me too. It's like we're peeling back the layers of human behavior and understanding ourselves and the world a little better.
And remember, this journey of self-discovery and personal growth never really ends.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those connections strong.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the human experience. It really is something to think about, you know? Like, how can we all just keep growing and learning in our relationships?
Absolutely. And, you know, it strikes me that even though we've been talking about younger women and older men, a lot of these insights apply to any relationship, don't they?
They really do. It doesn't matter if you're the same age or different ages. These qualities are important for everyone.
Yeah, whether it's romantic relationships or even friendships and family.
Totally. It all comes down to that basic human need to connect with
I
others.
feel understood and valued.
Exactly. And it's not about superficial things. It's about who we are at our core.
Now, I know we can't say this applies to every single relationship out there,
There's not. Everyone's different.
but the research does give us a really good framework for understanding what's going on beneath the surface.
It helps us make sense of these dynamics, and it reminds us that relationships are complex.
For sure. They're not always easy to categorize or explain.
Exactly. But the important thing is to approach every relationship with an open mind, you know? To see beyond stereotypes and judgment. So well said. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've busted some myths, looked at some assumptions, and gained some real insight into this whole dynamic between younger women and older men.
We talked about evolutionary psychology, emotional maturity, communication, and so much more.
And I think the key takeaway is that healthy relationships, no matter the age difference, are all about respect, trust, and those shared values.
Couldn't agree more. I always learn so much for these deep dives, don't you?
Absolutely. It's like we're getting a glimpse into what makes people tick.
And remember, everyone, the journey of self-discovery never ends.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those connections strong. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Until next time.